Hey everyone, Cursed Deck Builder here, making our way to 10,000 decks assisted. And right now we've got a Queen Marchesa deck from Jacques. Jacques has sent us this list using the form you can find in the video description below. And they say what needs improvement is win-con combos, and that their only restrictions are no fast mana, and then they say mana, synergy, everything you want. Not quite sure what that last part means, but I hopefully will be able to help here. So, as always, this deck list will be in the video description below. I highly recommend you open it up so that if you're watching or listening to this video, you can follow along and you're able to think about what you would change in the deck and see if you and I agree on those changes. And then after which, you can comment below if you thought of anything that I haven't. So, Queen Marchesa. I love Queen Marchesa. I've had for the longest time a Queen Marchesa deck, though I've taken it apart recently. I'm always down to play her again. She is a fantastic commander, and the Monarch is a lot of fun. So, what does Queen Marchesa say? Well, she's a 3/3 Death Touch Haste. On ETB, she puts the Monarch into play, which I will explain in a second. And at the beginning of the upkeep, if you're not the Monarch, you will get a 1/1 Assassin creature token with Death Touch and Haste. So what's the Monarch? Well, the Monarch is one of these emblem style effects that exists outside of the main battlefield that if you've seen dungeons, they're kind of like those, where the person who is the Monarch will draw an extra card at the end of their turn. And if you attack and deal combat damage to the Monarch, you will become the Monarch yourself. So the way I like thinking of Queen Marchesa is that she is a creature, she is a commander that puts on a Phyrexian Arena, because I'm a black mage, so everything comes through black cards to me, but a Phyrexian Arena style card into play where you're going to draw an extra card every turn. Now, some might say, well, your opponents can become the Monarch, but as long as you get the monarchy back during your turn, you will continue to benefit from Queen Marchesa and the extra card that you have. Now, it shouldn't be a surprise, considering that my other main commander is Brina, is that I don't particularly mind giving my opponents cards as long as I get to draw more cards than them more consistently. And with that in mind, I love Queen Marchesa. But one of the main problems of Queen Marchesa is that she throws such a wide net that it's really hard to pinpoint one direction to build her in. People build her as a Pillowfort commander. People build her as a reanimation commander. People build her as a stacks commander. People build her as a hate bears commander. And I'm sure there's more that I haven't particularly thought of. It is often, it feels correct to branch out in all of these directions, which is good because Queen Marchesa enables all these strategies. But there is a bit of a problem here because when we branch out too far, we start weakening our deck by picking too many strategies. And I would say that's probably what's happened here. We're going to try to find out what is the ideal strategy to win, and we're going to focus on them. They say that they want win-con combos. We're going to find one win condition, and we're going to go for it. So let's look at the curve. Curve is real nice. It gets a little higher in the end, which I'd like to work on, but otherwise it's nice and clean. And we're in a red deck, and there's 1/9 mana card. You know what it is. It's Blasphemous Act. So let's take a look and see where can I make cuts. Because there's a lot of stuff that I love that I feel like I don't really need to bring attention to. There are a lot of tutors. This is a deck with a lot of tutors. It wants to win by combo. There's a lot of really strong cards that hate on a number of strategies. I generally really, really like, outside of this one, I really, really like the creature base. I guess we're here, so we might as well start. The ones that stick out to me are Moonblessed Cleric, though this works with the Sanguine Bond combo, Firemain Commando, and Gisela. All of these stand out as being kind of strange inclusions here. Moonblessed Cleric, I get that's a tutor, but I think you're running enough tutors that it's not much of a problem. Um, so I don't think you should be playing that. After which, Firemain Commando is you're not playing enough creatures to get this ability, I would say, enough times. Like, yes, Marchesa makes tokens, but that doesn't guarantee that you'll have the two tokens. Like you sometimes start, rounds and you are still the monarch, you don't get a token. And so this is a 4 mana card that sometimes does nothing for a turn cycle, while your opponent's will can benefit, though two or more creatures is a harder thing than just one attack. I just don't particularly like it. I think you have stronger cards, and this one stands out as a weaker card. It also has the problem where it's 4 mana, and Queen Marchesa is 4 mana, so she will always take precedent off of all of your other 4 mana cards. So I don't like Firemain Commando. We can probably drop that. Gisela feels like an additional version of Elish Norn, where it is the payoff for a creature attacking build or a direct damage build, which this deck doesn't really seem to be on either side. And I just rather Elish Norn because Elish Norn is she's just a board clear, right? She just clears the board, keeps it clear. She's much, much more powerful. Um, Gisela, I believe, doesn't even have haste, so you can't even really use her to deal 10 damage right away. I don't like her. I would cut her. Looking at sorceries, I'm generally pretty happy. Mythos of Snapdax. Um, this is just tragic arrogance, right? Artifact, creature, enchantment, planeswalker. This is tragic arrogance with a really restrictive mana cost. I think I would just rather you play tragic arrogance. I know technically it is it is 1 mana more to play Tragic Arrogance. However, I will say it is really, really hard. I don't see fetch lands in your list. It's really hard to get exactly white, black, red, white. I hold on. Black, red, white, white is what I should say. That's a very specific mana cost that can be difficult to get. So I don't particularly like this. Devastating Mastery. Um, I don't know what your group is. I don't find planar cleansing effects all that strong. I think oftentimes, considering the number of enchantments and artifacts you're playing, I don't think you benefit from that. And I think even then, I wonder how much you just rather planar cleansing because it just has a less restrictive mana cost because getting an opponent to return a permanent to their hand to pay the mastery cost is particularly up to 2. My goodness. Yeah, I don't like this. You're not paying 4 for this, you're paying 6. And if you're paying 6, you should just play this. But honestly, if you're just looking for another Wrath, I think you should start by playing Wrath of God. Um, in fact, very quickly, since you have so many of these cards, I would ask if there's a reason you're not playing Toxic Deluge. Clearly, budget is pretty open. I really like Toxic Deluge. It works very well in a deck like this. It is low mana, which means it's easy to cast, and you're drawing cards, so you have a high chance of getting it. It's just more powerful. I would play that. Farewell's okay. Um, Farewell's okay. I would, if we're playing Farewell, you don't need to play Planar Cleansing. You can just cut the Devastating Mastery. Now we're kind of at a higher mana cost here. Breach is a reanimation game plan. Like, don't get me wrong, you're also getting cards from your opponent's graveyards, and this is a very powerful card, but it is highly, highly, you know, it's what we call a floor to ceiling card, right? We are looking at what is the floor of this card and what is the ceiling of this card, and the best way to raise the floor is to increase the amount of reanimation targets in your deck. And though your deck is particularly strong, I would argue that Elish Norn is the only reanimation target. Gisela to a point, but I'm also recommending you take her out, so maybe not so much. But Breach feels like a coin flip here, right? Because sometimes you're going to get something really good from your opponents, and sometimes you're not. So I don't particularly like it. Ruinous Ultimatum is a card I really don't like. I I know it is kind of the signpost of Mardu nowadays, that if you are in Mardu and you're playing any form of controlling strategy, heck, I'd probably say any strategy at all, this is the card you play. Um, I find that mana cost incredibly prohibitive, not just in symbols, but also amount. 7 mana is a lot, and your opponents have counter magic. This is a card that angers all of your opponents. Traditionally, board clears will always not upset one of your opponents because they're not losing a lot, and that's usually either because they have no board or their board is not creatures. This card angers that player because they're losing, if nothing else, their mana rocks, they're losing maybe their proactive enchantments, they're losing a planeswalker that you probably didn't even care about. This card angers everyone, costs a lot of mana, and its effect is just, I guess, just fine. It feels really devastating, but as we go up in power, and your deck is a very powerful deck, board clears become weaker and weaker because people are playing stronger cards, holding up more mana. Like it's a lot. I don't know. I'm going to suggest that you take it out, and if you don't take it out, I think you could get rid of Farewell, Devastating Mastery, Mythos, all of those cards, and just keep Ruinous Ultimatum. You have tutors. If you're able to cast it and you need to cast it, that's fine. You have tutors. You don't need more copies of this kind of card. Blasphemous X is fine. Never going to complain. All right, instants. Instants make a lot of sense generally. You're playing Crackling Doom, which is once again another signpost of this deck. Incredibly powerful card that functions really well at instant speed. However, Silence is a little confusing to me. There's one instance that I'm fine with Silence, and we're gonna get to that later. But as of right now, I'm a little confused why you have Silence. You don't have a really, outside of having 10 mana to do this in one turn, you always run the risk of, if you cast one of these two, that's going to get countered. You can't hold up Silence for both of them, right? So Silence feels kind of strange. Like, sure, you can Silence then Ruinous Ultimatum, but even then, that's just okay. You have Grand Abolisher here that I think is doing a much better job. So the inclusion of Silence feels a little strange, especially when you have Pyroblast that just does a better version, and Dawn Charm. No, Dawn Charm doesn't work in that way. Sorry, but Pyroblast that would stop a counterspell anyways. Tybalt's Trickery also in the same way, really good to stop counterspells. So nice and easy. I don't think we need Silence. Rest of this seems fine. We get to artifacts. Most of this seems fine as well. I don't like Sensei's Divining Top. I never will. You can never convince me otherwise. Okay, if you had a Miracle deck, I would understand it. If you had a deck that cares about the top card. But don't play this card. Don't play this card. This card is very bad. It doesn't do anything. And my least favorite thing in Magic is cards like Serum Vision, where you just look at the top of your deck, you cycle the card, so you play a card and you draw a card, just like top, where you draw a card and then you put the top right back on its deck. Oh my god, it takes forever. And it is one of my least favorite things about blue mages. And Sensei's Divining Top says, hey, what if every color had this ability? This is a personal vendetta. If you like this card, you can continue to play it, but I do not like this card at all. Coming here, I see two talismans, two signets. I'm a little confused. Why we're not playing the full set. Why are we not playing the Boros talisman and the Boros signet? What did Boros ever do to you? There is a lot of cards that I think you would benefit, and traditionally you have a 4 mana commander that's in 3 colors. I want to play every talisman and every signet available so that on turn 3, I have a really, really high chance of playing my commander. So I think you should just play the full set, especially considering you only have 31 lands. Absolutely, I would play the whole set, and I would consider adding 1 or 2 lands as well. Chromatic Lantern is fine. This is 3 colors. If you can't get fetch lands, this is a card that makes your mana base better. I am not going to fight you on that. It is definitely a acceptable choice at this point. Aetherflux Reservoir is potentially a combo finish with Bolas Citadel, which is right below. But outside of artifact decks, these cards get a little weaker when you draw them not at the same time. So I am tempted to cut them as well. All right, we're coming to the end of looking through the whole deck. Blind Obedience, I think this is fine. I don't think it's great. I think it's fine. You don't have enough creatures to really be taking advantage of all your opponent's creatures coming in tapped. So I'm a little medium on it. You don't generate enough mana to really make the most off the extort. So I'm also a little medium on it. I think it's just fine, but I wouldn't mind if you take it out. Darksteel Mutation, also fine. I think at the power level your deck is at, Darksteel Mutation doesn't have the oomph, that it has at lower power tables where you cast it and someone loses their commander for the rest of the game. I think if you're at a table and you are bringing Vampiric Tutor and everyone else is at a similar power level, I think it is safe to say that Darksteel Mutation is not a guaranteed way to take out someone's commander. Would be very surprising if they don't have a way to interact with it. So I'm not against you keeping it, but I am. I would definitely play it after maybe even Lightning Bolt. I would play before Darksteel Mutation. We just talked about Lightning Bolt. I prefer it. Um, I just don't think it's going to be as effective as it could be. Luminarch Ascension is a card I really like and is needs to be played in a different version of this deck. Luminarch Ascension represents so much so quickly, but you need to have a lot of mana. If you run this out on turn 2, which I think is the ideal way to play this card, you run it on turn 2, the cycle goes around, and Luminarch Ascension is ready to go off. As soon as you make it past your next opponent again, it'll have the 4 counters because it's assumed at this point in the game that they don't have enough creatures to really pressure you. So it's assumed at this point in the game you will get the cycle through and you'll be able to get 4 counters on it. So you untap. Ideally, you use 1 mana to do something, and you go to your opponent's turn. Their turn ends. They can't attack you. Let's say, and then you're online. What does that mean? It means you can start making angels. But how many angels? You're on turn 3, so you make 1 angel. Gets back to you, you make 2 other angels. Gets back to you, you make 2 more angels. Gets back to you, you make 3 more angels. That sounds really impressive, but you have to remember you're not doing anything during this time. During this time, you cannot cast spells unless they cost 1 mana, because you will always, on odd mana turns, you will have 1 remaining mana to not make an angel. And if you're not making every angel you possibly can, you are behind with playing this card. It then stops being a good card. It also makes all your board clears like almost worthless because it's not that you can't board wipe and then put another angel out. It's every time you board wipe, you lose all the angels you had before. It is an incredibly fast clock if you can put out a bunch of angels at once, though. Because you have to remember, late game, this is a lot harder to get going. You have to play Luminarch Ascension. you have to wipe the board immediately, and you have to ensure that your opponents don't have the means to deal damage to you in other ways. Late game, people have the mana to lightning bolt you. They have the mana to have haste creatures. They have the means to do the damage. So it loses a lot of its strength. It becomes a tempo turn. However, late game, when it gets back to you and you've gets back to the opponent a second time, the one to your left, and this is ready to go, and you have 6 mana. Well, okay, now it's a good card. You tap out, you play 3/4/4s flying that are ready to attack immediately on the next turn. That's really, really good. So, all this to say, I really like this card, but I don't think you generate enough mana for this card to be good. I would, if you want to keep it, you have to kind of set up some play patterns to use it to its best degree, or the highest value of it. Path to Metal is a card I've also played. This is a fantastic card in this deck. I hope everyone plays this card if you play Queen Marchesa. It is so, so strong. It is ramp in colors that do not have ramp traditionally, and oof, it is a beating when your opponents have mana dorks. It is very, very good. Righteous Aura. This feels wrong. I don't know. I guess it stops an infinite combo of a kind. So maybe you have that. This feels wrong. I don't want this. I'd rather Holy Day or Darkness. For that one off, I should type those out. They are both fog effects. Prevent all combat damage. Darkness. Now this stops non-combat damage, but you need to hold up mana for it constantly. I don't love it. It does nothing on wide boards. It's not even an aura. My goodness, it's not even an aura. Yeah, I don't know about this. I think I would prefer a fog effect. Phyrexian Arena's fine. Smothering Tithe, Exquisite Blood. Okay. I'm wondering why you're not playing in a deck like this Necropotence. I know black, black, black is harder in 3-color decks, but you are at the power level. You should be playing Necropotence. I still play a lot of draw cards. Yeah, let's go to suggestions. Let's start with, you're at the power level that I would like to see Dark Confidant in here, and I would like to see Keen Duelist in here. These are 2 more creatures for you to play that enable you to draw an extra card every turn. Keen Duelist gives someone else a card, but if you're playing Queen Marchesa, you're perfectly fine letting an opponent get a card here and there. So that's not a problem. I did skip Elspeth Sun's Champion. I didn't say anything about her. She's great. That's all I'll say. She's fantastic. I don't see her being a problem here at all. So yeah, I would like you to play Keen Duelist. I'd like you to play Dark Confidant. Brina is good here too. As we go up in creatures, she gets better. She also enables you, much like Timna as well. Timna as well will let you get more card draw in your card draw deck about combat. Then after that, we need to take a look at our combo win, right? We've got 2 here. We've got Aetherflux Reservoir and Bolas the Citadel, which I'd like to remove, and Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond, which is a bit more of a reasonable combo. It is the only one that we really have at instant win that's affordable. The alternative is Helm of, is it Obedience? Could be wrong. Let's duplicate and let's look at. It's with Rest in Peace is the combo. Okay, looks like that's going to load for a bit. So while those load, um, let's assume Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond are your combo. What do you need in order to win? You need both cards in hand, because ideally you're going to go off on one turn. And then you want to be able to protect that combo, so using Grand Abolisher, or if you're going to keep silence. Then you're going to cast both, and then you're going to attack with Queen Marchesa or one of her tokens to deal a single point of damage, which will then get you to win on the board. This is a little expensive, but I am going to suggest it nonetheless. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's a lot. I think if you want a one-turn win, Something like Elish Norn with a bunch of your creatures is probably going to deal more damage. Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond, it's an expensive combo. The alternative would be the alternative is just as expensive. So let's look at this one. Rest in Peace, which is a playable card in a deck like this because it's very powerful in a lot of setups. And Helm of Obedience, which is unfortunately a $60 US card. Um, so I'm going to suggest it, but I understand that it is a price contention. So Helm of Obedience says target you pay X is one. Actually, do you even need to put? I think you do need to put one. So yeah, it says X can't be zero. So you pay one mana and tap it, and you start milling your opponent until X card, which is one, until one card goes into the graveyard. And if you have Rest in Peace, none of those cards go into the graveyard. So for 5 mana, four to play this, one to tap it, you exile a player out of the game. Now, this doesn't beat your other two opponents, but it does represent the ability to do so right after. And so um, this is another option to take out your opponents one at a time in a combo way in a deck like this. I think the other thing I'd like to point out is that I think you have the means to combo off, but you need to be thinking about what you're doing in the meantime. The problem with combo decks at this level is that you're not playing blue, unfortunately. You have a really, really strong deck, but you're not playing blue, so you're at a bit of a disadvantage. So if you were up for suggestions, my suggestion would be to give up on the combo win because it's kind of holding you back. You're playing cards like Idyllic Tutor, which is not a good card when you have access to Vampiric Tutor, right? There's a lot of work you're putting in to get two cards to win you the game at 5 mana, whereas, you have Enlightened Tutor, which I'm going to say is also like Idyllic Tutor. You have Enlightened Tutor. Don't you want more of the time to be able to grab Smothering Tithe, play it the next turn, and then start reaping the benefits, as opposed to, you know, grabbing Exquisite Blood to just rot in your hand for the rest of the game, hoping no one discards your hand or counterspells it, and that you can keep it on the field when it's time to combo off? Like, that's a lot of hoops to jump through for a deck that is very good at jumping through a lot of different other hoops. So if you would ask me, my suggestion would be to drop the combo win and go for a uh, grinding out slowly kind of win with a lot of creatures, a lot of hate. You have a lot of interaction. The way I used to build Queen Marchesa, and this makes me want to play her again, is with Sunforger, as Sunforger is incredibly powerful in Mardu colors, because for when you can attach it onto someone, all of a sudden you have access to almost every good instant speed spell in your deck for 2 mana. That's just me though. You don't have to go that direction. But I will heavily recommend you think twice about the combo play because I think your deck is strong enough, and by trying to force a combo in colors that don't have a really good combo, like there's no Thassa's Oracle here, right? I think you're kind of holding yourself back with that strategy. Like the thing with cards like Wishcloth Talisman is that you're going to play them when you can win that turn. And at this power level, you don't have the means to win in one turn really cleanly. And instead, you're just giving someone else a tutor, which they will be able to use, a lot better. If you do go more grindy, you can keep Aetherflux Reservoir and Bolas' Citadel. They get considerably better when they're not meant to be I win cards and instead just value cards. So my rating on those two changes. All right. I hope that helps. I really like Queen Marchesa, and I feel like this deck is on a really, really good direction. I think it just has cards that kind of stand out to me as being a little strange, as I've noted. And beyond that, like the amount of power here is really, really impressive. I really like almost all of the creatures here, minus the ones I've noted. Like this creature setup is really, really strong. And all the suggestions I put into it, I believe will add to it considerably. Unfortunately, you can't play Thalia in a deck like this, who I really like because you're very much a non-creature deck. But otherwise, this is a very, very powerful setup. Your instants, artifacts, enchantments, they're all strong. Your sorceries are all strong. I just want to change which ones. That's We're going to play with numbers is the idea. If you build another draft of this deck, I'd love to see it again. You can send it through the form again, or if you want to send me any deck. The form is in the video description below, and I'd love to see any deck you guys send me so I can help make it a little better. And as always, if you could like, comment, subscribe, I would be very grateful. The channel is still growing, and all of that interaction makes it a little easier to reach more people. Oh boy, I want to put together Queen Marchesa again. Maybe I will. We'll see. But until then, good luck with the deck, and thanks for watching.